Hello and welcome to Daddy Issues, the podcast where we talk about father and son relationships in popular culture. My name's Dominic Carter and with me as always is my co-host David Bryan. Hello.
Bloody hell, take a breath.
I can't, Dave. I can't take a breath because we're talking once again about the coolest literature series in all of human history, Lone Wolf and Cub. We're back to it and I'm so excited. I feel like I'm speaking at the speed of a samurai charging towards his opponent in a duel.
So
and then I'll pause dramatically.
And we'll wait to see who falls. And then, spray of blood.
And then fucking blood everywhere. I feel like Gendo Ikari watching his son fight a massive robot and then a massive alien rather in the robot, and blood sprays all over his face, and he's just stood there stoically, and you're like, that's cool.
He's dead to the visceral trauma of blood being spilled and shit like that. He's so dead inside,
and that is fantastic because it brings us on to one of the issues that we are talking about today. Last time we spoke about Lone Wolf and Cub, we only really spoke about Volume 1. So if for some reason you're listening to this and you haven't listened to Volume 1, go and check it out because also we talk about MF Doom and that's cool.
That is cool. But just first a warning, since we're calling back, that episode does start with me rapping.
Yes, it does.
Forgetting that I was on mic. But then me editing it in anyway because I thought what is more transparent than me bearing my soul in my most vulnerable, showing off a skill that I don't possess, but it was just a nice little vocal exercise. But yeah, I'm kind of glad that it's out there and it's a little bit embarrassing. Like I feel better for it. Yeah, I feel stronger. What's that Patton Oswalt stand-up show? My weakness is strong. I feel good for it somehow.
Well, that's good. So go back and listen to our episode on Volume 1 of Lone Wolf and Cub because we expand on what the story is, what it's all about, and also we talk about MF Doom and Dave spits some rhymes.
Yeah, so you can skip the first 30 seconds or so.
No, that's the integral bit. Today, though, Dave, I don't think he's planned any rap so far. Maybe listen to the end to see if we get to it or not.
Coax one out.
But we're going to talk about volumes 2, 3, and 4 of Lone Wolf and Cub. However, looking at the titles of these comics, if my Chinese, because the symbol, a lot of the traditional symbols are the same in Chinese and Japanese. If my Chinese is correct, then actually this should be Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 5. However, Volume 1 of the book consisted of the introduction chapter and then an extra bit at the end. So we're starting with, again, apologies for pronunciation of Japanese here. So we're starting with Pitiful Osue? I'm going to say Osue, I reckon.
I was going to say
you've got a better...
Osue,
okay. Interesting. I'll tell you what, we'll do one each just to cover our bases.
Okay.
Right? Either way. Because then when we're both wrong, we'll be wrong together. But yeah, so I think Chapter 3, but Volume 2 is Pitiful Osue, well, whatever we're going to go with. Osue probably sounds better. Volume 3, which is The Gateless Barrier, and Volume 4, The Flute of the Fallen Tiger.
Which is the fucking coolest title.
It is, especially when you find out what the Flute of the Fallen Tiger is, but we'll get to it. Okay, so, Volume 2. Well, what did you think of these three? Before, we had a lot of high praise for Volume 1 when we went through that for the first time. What did you think of these ones?
This kind of, it's continued in the same vein of being, because I hadn't read any actually since we first talked about it. I read the first 4 or 5 volumes, and I haven't read any since. So going back to talk about these sort of first batch was a kind of just a retreading what I've already read, but then a reminder, because I hadn't thought about it at all since, but a reminder about how good this series is. I think I messaged you, it's been like, this is so good. I almost can't believe how good this is. And when you read the introductions at the beginning of every volume by Frank Miller, and he's obviously creaming himself about how good this stuff is too, and you're kind of like, I get it. And if Frank Miller, I don't think Frank Miller is the sort to dole out gushing praise unless he really means it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, do you want to give us a quick rundown on like the on our hero, like who are the Lone Wolf and Cub and what are they doing?
What are they doing? Okay, so quick rewind. Ito Ogami is our lone wolf, who is a masterless samurai, a ronin, who has chosen the path of the assassin's road. He's going to be an assassin. I think in one of the earlier issues, he's told by the shogun whom he used to serve to commit seppuku and end his life, and he's like, no, fuck you, I'm going out on the road with my boy and we're gonna fuck shit up. I don't know if that's his intention, but he ends up fucking shit up.
That is pretty much exclusively what he does.
He does fuck a lot of shit up, and a lot of
Ito
people.
Ogami exclusively fucking shit up since 1253 or something like that.
Even if he doesn't mean to, it just seems to follow him around. But he was once the executioner of the shogun, basically like the emperor of Japan, and he would travel Japan, and all the people who the shogun thought had betrayed him, or for whatever reason the shogun wanted to be done with a lord of one of these warring areas of Japan, he would send him a note. Dear guy, please commit seppuku. You have dishonored me. I don't like you anymore. We're going to take your land and divide it up amongst my friends. Yours sincerely, the shogun. And so people would do it because that was the respectful thing to do, and it was our hero Ito Ogami's job as the royal executioner to be there when these men were forced to kill themselves, to do the final blow. So that the men committing seppuku would have to stick the dagger in their stomach and disembowel themselves as the act of an honourable ritual suicide, and then it was his job to be there to chop their head off at the end, just to be like, well done, you did the hard bit, now I'm just going to end your suffering and move on. And he was a super feared guy, like the most deadliest swordsman in all of Japan. Everyone knew who he was, and if you happen to see the crest upon his robes of the, what's it called, I was going to say the ham hock, but that's like a sandwich, but it's like that thing that like a mustardy sandwich on a malt bread. Oh,
yes. When Ito Ogami shows you his sandwich, you know
he's got
that
this.
things
He's
are
got
about
this crest
to be
of like
up.
a ham sandwich with like mustard dripping off. Yeah, or whatever it's called.
The
crest of the
that
show
looks tasty.
Does, I'd be like, oh, that looks tasty, and then my head's gone. But yeah, no. So if you saw the crest of the shogun, this like floral crest, you'd be like, fuck, I know who this is, and that's it. I'm done for. But after many years of service as the right hand, the right hand of the shogun, he gets betrayed, and his family are murdered, and he's at the head of his own clan, the Ogami clan, and this whole clan is killed, including his wife, who's still carrying their unborn child, and they're betrayed by another clan, who are trying to get his power and get his job, basically. So he's kind of just fucked. And it's then from then on, it's kind of a traditional revenge kind of story where he refuses to lie down and refuses to die, and he's gonna fuck up everyone who killed his family. But with the caveat of he's also raising an infant son at the same time, and taking him on this journey throughout Japan. And as we've said, he tends to stumble into instances where he has to use his skill. When often he wouldn't want to, but he's challenged, and on occasion he is hired as an assassin to do a job that no one else can do. But we kind of pick up, I think in issue 1 we pick up Ito Ogami and his son Daigoro on the Assassin's Road, and we flash back to how they got there, and from then on we have lots of adventures and interesting interactions with interesting people who mostly get fucked up.
Someone is going to get fucked up, and in each issue, I suppose, we learn an extra reason why Ogami is the baddest motherfucker on the planet.
Baddest man alive.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good explanation there. I like that. what's kind of interesting, as we spoke about before, is how old is Diagoro supposed to be? And in my mind, that kind of changes chapter to chapter. Like, when I'm reading it, maybe this is something I should have done some research into beforehand, but it doesn't feel to me like you have to read a particular issue in chronological order. Like, maybe characters will appear and reappear as we read through the volumes, but so far, Diagoro has kind of gone from being a baby to to being able to say a few words, and was probably chapter 2, but one of the bits we spoke about previously, Diagoro was just left on his own in a frozen cave for like a week, and he knew where to poop, he knew what to do, but he didn't seem like he was. I think in that episode we spoke about how it's like Diagoro knows what's going on, but he's not like he's not able to fend for himself, essentially. But by the time we get to volume 2, the Pitiful Osue, as we're going to go with, Diagoro is like 5 years old, I reckon, by this point. Because he's able to stand up, he's able to speak for himself. As we see, he's able to wield weaponry and hold fighting stances. And his 5-year-olds fucking go. Like, Daigoro is not a kid that you want to be messing around with, is what we basically learned.
Did you teach this kind of age group when you were in China? And could you can you imagine if any of them had stood up and been like, you know what, teacher, and then pulled out a sword and took on that stance? You'd have been like, oh fuck, okay, you do whatever you want.
Yeah, I've taught kids this age in China, in Hong Kong, in Russia, and in Turkey. And let me just tell you, when there's a sharpened pencil in the room, anything can happen. And you've got to be thankful a lot of times that they don't just happen to have a samurai sword.
Or be trained to wield it by the baddest man alive.
Yeah, that certainly would help things. But the title is interesting, because we're going. Let's go with the word Osue, it sounds cooler. Is essentially a maid. Right, we find out later on that it translates. There are 2 translations in this issue that I spotted. One of them was for Osue to explain that is the the lowest maid within a rich household. It's normally like the lowest servant girl who has to do the most menial of jobs, basically. And then the other translation was for tofu, which explained to us that tofu is actually a soybean curd. And I read that and thought, did people really need an explanation of what tofu was when this book came out?
I thought that too, yeah. I guess this is released in the West in 1987, and maybe tofu wasn't as commonplace as it isn't really even now, but at least people probably know what it is. Yeah,
there weren't enough vegans back then for people to know what tofu was. So anyway, that was just an interesting thing that we noticed. But the title of essentially a pitiful servant, I guess if you were going to translate the second word as well, is interesting, because this servant girl that we meet in the story is part of the household that Diagoro kind of accidentally gets involved with. And I don't think that she was actually pitiful. As we find out later in the book, which we'll get to, she takes pity on Diagoro, not the other way around necessarily.
Well, that's kind of what I wondered with the title, was whether that's just a strange translation, in that pitiful isn't necessarily an adjective of a downtrodden person. It could be someone who is full of pity for somebody else. Like maybe it's a bit. It's been translated a bit too literally, maybe, but
Yeah, and I think it kind of works in both ways, because her circumstance and what she goes through is bad.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think that pity is necessarily the right word either, because pity is you kind of look down on someone that you pity a little bit, right? It's like there's a certain arrogance that comes with pity.
Do you think?
It's not quite empathetic. It's like, oh, you poor thing. Like, I'm doing so well and you're not. And isn't it such a pity that they're kind of... Whereas there is more empathy shared between her and Diagoro, I think, as the story goes on. Like, they form a relationship together, which is one of the reasons that she gets turned against later on. But it's great. Let's just get into it, Dave.
Yes,
let's get into it.
Let's get inside it.
Yes. How does this chapter open up?
This opens up in quite a really cool visual couple of pages with no dialogue that I really liked, where Daigoro is on his own. He's not with his dad, and he's watching like a family flying a kite next to a river. Just kind of just wistfully watching this kite fly around above him. Meanwhile, Osue and two other girls are being kind of marched past by a man we find out is a maid merchant. So I'm guessing as someone who just takes a bunch of young girls to rich households and goes, "Hey, do you want to buy this slave off me?"
There's a bit I think it's in the next chapter, in chapter 4, where they say volume 3, I guess. In volume 3, they say the province has become so poor that families are selling their daughters.
Oh, right.
And we've just seen that. We've seen that in the previous one with these young girls, who are being taken from household to household, to be sold as maids.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy is going to household selling maids, but as they pass the river where Daigoro is watching this kite, the kite falls to the ground right near Daigoro, and the youngest, smallest of these servant girls picks up the kite and gives it to Daigoro and goes, "Oh, is this yours?" And he goes, "No." And the maid merchant goes, "Oh, hey, don't lag behind and keep up." So she trots off with him, and meanwhile Daigoro is left holding this kite that doesn't belong to him. The people who actually are flying it, there is a young man and two men, and turns out the young man is like the young lord of the household that Osue is going to end up working for, and he's, as in sort of quintessential rich kid fashion, he's a bit of a shit. And he's like, "Hey, get your hands off my kite, it's mine."
Yeah, he's like a real Joffrey Lannister type.
Exactly. Yeah, he totally is. And so I think he pushes or kicks Daigoro to the ground, and Daigoro's like, "All right," and he, in a flash, gets up, pulls out his sword, and cuts this kid. And in a way and he whinges and wails about it like he's about to die. And as we find out later, he's basically just been nicked. It's like a shallow cut. He'll be fine. And even like I think it's like the head servant lady of the household is like, "You're crying like a girl. No samurai cries like this. Stop being a puss."
Well, we find out basically this kid's a little bitch. Is basically what we find out.
Again, he's it's a real Joffrey kind of thing. And if he gets slapped by his dad, he'd go away crying. And Joffrey / fucking Draco Malfoy.
Draco Malfoy. Yes, that's a good one. Yeah, because in that scene, Daigoro is handed the kite, and he's holding it. The boy comes up, "Hey, that's my kite!" And then immediately, rather than saying, "Could you return my kite?" the kid slaps Daigoro across the face, and Daigoro just looks at him and lunges. But Daigoro doesn't have a weapon because he's a 5-year-old boy.
Oh.
But this young lord who is like who is expected to become a samurai himself as he grows up. He's of the samurai class rather than the peasant class. Daigoro steals the lord's
little kid's sword,
blade. Yeah, and he attacks him, steals his sword, and then slashes his arm with his own sword. And then as you're saying, he goes home wailing. Yeah. Wailing like a little bitch.
And the two sort of manservants who are there to look after the young lord kick Daigoro to the ground, and sort of they drag him along with them back to the house.
Yeah, but they're really surprised that he stands in a certain way, doesn't he? He's got the blade, and Daigoro takes a certain stance with the sword. He's not just like he's some random little kid who's waving a sword around. It's like, oh, that's actually a fighting
style.
He's standing like a samurai. Yeah, which is cool.
It is cool, but then he still gets whacked because they're still adults.
Yeah, there's a great. Yeah, he dodges an attack from a samurai, cuts him across the chest, but because he's a little boy, the samurai just kicks him to the ground, basically. Just whack, and there's a great sound effect. Whack straight to the ground. And Daigoro, as we get back to the house, we found out Daigoro hasn't cried once. He hasn't made a sound. He hasn't shed a tear. While the little lord is, "I'm bleeding."
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out the little lord is older than Daigoro. He must be 7, 8, 9 sort of age, and he's
maybe older. Yeah,
but it's wailing like a little baby child would, and Daigoro's been slapped across the face, kicked to the ground by adults, and he hasn't made a peep. And there's this great actual panel after the little kid slaps him. he just has this. He just looks up with this face that's kind of very wide-eyed and stoic and kind of scary. And when he attacks the young lord, the male servants are stunned.
Yeah, no one can believe what this cat, and those eyes that you're saying, definitely they come back in later on as to how they kind of identify who this young boy may be, and it's his eyes that give his identity away, which is really cool. So we'll get back to that. So at the house we have the servants. The maid merchant has brought them in, and they are given a test to see who is the most dexterous of these maids, which is to chop tofu, and whoever cuts their tofu in the most suitable way, I suppose.
So the cleanest, the cleanest cut.
Yeah. And as someone who has cut tofu many times, it's a fucking ball ache, and I hate it. So it's a good test. It's a decent, especially if you're talking about tofu like 500 years ago or something, when it's not like nicely put into a square package and then you just drain it and then cut it up like that. So yeah, it works. And Osue, who gave the kite to Daigoro at the beginning, is the one who was chosen for the household because she cuts that tofu like a champ.
She's a killer with that tofu knife.
Yeah, God, I wouldn't want to be the tofu in this situation.
No, although you'd be left in lots of nice, neat pieces, so it would be easy to identify.
That's true. So as they burst back in, the samurai with the young lord burst in. They've got Daigoro wrapped up like a Christmas package or something, and this is when we get that great moment that you're talking about. Daigoro is like tied to a post outside, not showing any emotion at all. And maybe it's his mother, I'm not sure. But who the female head of the household, it's not said if it's his mother or the head servant or anything.
I think there's two women. One's I thought was his mother, and one was like the head servant woman.
Is the head servant one the one who looks like she has daggers for teeth?
Yeah. She looks a bit peasant class, but still has this weird air of like I remember watching Downton Abbey and all the downstairs people. There is even a hierarchy within them, and the highest of the servants sort of strut around and I have a lot of respect, but ultimately they're still just poor people. Yeah,
right. Yeah, well, they're telling their young lord, what's his name, Shinosuke?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, his mother or someone says, "Pull yourself together. No samurai child ever cries over a little cut like that. You're carrying on like a girl." I guess it must be his mother, because then the samurai apologise to her.
Your ladyship.
Yeah. And then go about just slapping the shit out of Daigoro, basically. Like, this 5-year-old boy, they're just, like, whacking him around.
Yeah, but again, like, he just takes it. Doesn't make a sound, just... I would have buckled under that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
After one slap, I'd be like, okay, I'm sorry, I'll tell you whatever you want.
Yeah, and when they say it's so crazy that he's not crying, they say, he gives him the creeps. Yeah. I think it's the mother again, says, this is the rebellious attitude you find among the lower classes. Again, like setting up this, like you're saying, with Downton Abbey, setting up these levels of power, right? Yeah. So you have the head of the household. At the moment, she is the most powerful person in the household. Then under her, you have the samurai that serve her, then the maids, and then at the very bottom, we've got our servant girl that we've just met. And then Ogami and his son used to be a part of that world, but now exist outside of it, right? They are outside by wandering the Assassin's Road. They've left the confines, I guess, of that kind of class system because they're nothing now. They're ghosts. They're ghosts in the machine.
Yeah. They are. There's these mythical figures that may or may not exist.
Yeah. So as our young servant watches on, she recognizes Daigoro because she gave him the kite, and she's kind of looking on horrified as the head servant lady is like, I'm gonna fucking stab him. I think she says, "I'll make you bleed."
Yeah. And
that's how they're gonna get him to talk. But just before she does it, the man of the house walks in.
I think he's like what do they call him? The watchman. I think it's like the head
Yes,
samurai.
the Metsuke.
Yeah, he's not the.
Yes, I think it's the Metsuke.
The lord himself. He's just the.
No, so the Metsuke is something that I know from playing Shogun Total War, the strategy game. In Shogun Total War, you obviously you play as your daimyo or your lord of the area, and then you can recruit different agents to do things for you, right? So you have like a priest who will go around and convert people either to Buddhism or Catholicism, depending upon what kind of way you go. Then you have your ninja who go around assassinating people for you, and then you have your Metsuke whose job it is to eradicate the other two, basically. So, like when an enemy ninja enters your territory, you send the Metsuke to track them down and kill them, essentially. And then when the enemy priests arrive, you're like, you're a Catholic, kill him, kind of like that. And so when this character appeared, I was like, I know you because I've used you in video games.
So much of life goes that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But that goes to show like the cultural importance of that role within Japanese society at this point, because like it's important enough that I know what it is right, from having played it. So it was an important role for sure. And an honourable position to have. I would assume it would be another one of the roles like Ito Ogami had when he was working for the Shogun. Like, you have the executioner, and then the Metsuke would have been another person within that, those official roles.
The royal court kind of equivalent.
Yeah. So, the Metsuke, as you're saying, it translates to watchman. Kind of like a police officer of the time, I suppose, like the chief inspector, I guess, of the time. But he looks into the eyes of Daigoro and like shits himself. Everybody else is like, who is this little brat? Like, he's just a kid. The wife is like, oh, he's just from the lower classes. But the head of the household, stares into his eyes and is like, I'm scared of this boy.
Yeah.
Like,
as he says, he recognizes his eyes, or at least the look, and calls it life, death eyes, as though he's witnessed countless scenes of carnage, which he's right about. Yeah. So there's this weird kind of juxtaposition, or kind of two sides of the coin that you could fall this on. You can either look at Daigoro as being this badass little kid who can fuck shit up because he's been trained by the baddest man alive, or he's a humongously traumatized little boy who's seen so much stuff that he's shut down emotionally and maybe even mentally in terms of his development, and so he's completely outside of the realms of normal existence. So you either revere him or you do feel pity for him, because I think there's an issue later on where another samurai, I think I read it this morning actually, 6 or 7, where another samurai is telling Ogami, like, you need to quit this because your son is going to be fucked up forever and he's never going to live a normal life. You need to make a better decision for
that's a great issue.
It's a great issue, and so we'll get to that. But it's a great question, because he's undoubtedly right. Like, this little kid, if he carries on down this path, he can only live the life that his dad leaves. Whereas,
and that's why the beginning of issue 1 of the first volume is when Ogami tells his son to make the choice. Right, he says you can choose the ball and join your mother in heaven, or go to the blade and join me on the Assassin's Road.
Yeah, which is
and
a
when
loaded
his son
question.
goes to the,
because he's like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, to ask like a toddler.
Yeah. And he's like, well,
but when he goes,
do you reckon when Daigoro's like 25 and he's like, why did you do this to me, Dad? And his dad will be like, I gave you the choice, man. This is your fault.
Yeah. You have to take responsibility for your own choices as a toddler. Yeah. But when Daigoro goes to the blade, Ogami says to him, like, I wish I could have killed you and you could have joined your mother now. But instead you have to do the more difficult thing and join me. And that was kind of interesting about this issue, is that so far Ogami hasn't turned up at all.
Oh, yeah.
Right, we haven't seen him. But what we get here from the Metsuke is some of the samurai said, "Oh, it's really weird that this young kid, what they call him, a brat, when this brat attacked, like he had a strange fighting stance, like one that we weren't familiar with." And the Metsuke is like, "What was his stats?" Because already he's realized that something's wrong.
Yeah.
And the samurai shows him the fighting stance, and the lord of the house, like, and he says, "Oh God, no!"
Yeah.
As he realizes whose kid you've brought in here. And you know what? It goes back to again. It once again goes back to the Velociraptor eggs from Jurassic Park, which we're constantly referencing now at this point in different episodes. So if you haven't heard us, it is coming up in future episodes, depending upon when these come out. But what they have done is they have brought the Velociraptor egg into the baby T-Rex.
Baby T-Rex into the truck, yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, a baby T-Rex, that's dangerous." But what you're more scared about is when the parent T-Rex finds out what the fuck you've done.
It also made me think of, this is like in John Wick, where the Russian gangster finds out that his son killed John Wick's dog and stole his car, and he just says,
"Yeah,
oh."
yeah.
So it's like, of all the kids that you could have brought into here, this is the undoubtedly, unquestionably, unrivaled. This is the worst possible child you possibly could have brought here.
Yeah, do you know? And it brings me back to the Mandalorian again, as we spoke about before with the Mandalorian, where there's those occasional episodes where he loses the baby Yoda, or where Grogu was taken
the
from.
child.
Yeah, and there's those scenes where Baby Yoda seems like he's about to be in danger, but instead we cut to him just like using the Force to like throw stormtroopers around, right? And it's like, you know, even on his own, Baby Yoda is a formidable force, but once you then pair him with his father, it's like shit's about to go down. And I rewatched with my father. We watched season 2 of The Mandalorian last week. And I hadn't watched it since we did the episode on it. And I would want to go back to the episode we did about The Mandalorian and speak about those final episodes again. Because I think the father-son stuff in those final few episodes actually really holds up on a second rewatch.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, we were like, yeah, it's there, but did we really feel it? I felt it much more this time. And I think part of it is because I knew what Luke Skywalker's face was going to look like.
Yeah, there's no shock there.
And,
did you think also part of it is because you were watching it with your dad? Do you reckon there's a little bit... I know I'm kind of devil's advocating this because it was my point in the episode that this is not super dads and father and sonsy. So I'm kind of holding on to that win because it's the only one.
I think what really helped actually was we binged it.
Yeah.
Essentially, but those final few episodes, we kind of went, oh yeah, you know, Dad really likes Bill Burr, so we were kind of pushing towards the Bill Burr episode as well. Yeah, but it's when I had to wait for an episode from 1 week to the next, I lost the little scenes that build up their connection. So all of those little moments that we spoke about before, with the control stick, the ball on the control stick, and stuff like that, you forget a lot of those smaller details and focus on the bigger plot when you watch them week to week. But when you binge them, those little moments become more obvious. Yeah. So I would suggest doing a bit of, if you do a rewatch it quickly, because those little moments add up to more emotional satisfaction.
They probably come along. They probably stick better second time through as well.
Yeah. So it held up. It surprised me how well it held up, considering. We critiqued it quite heavily, but I was surprised that it did hold up better than I remembered it to do. Anyway, back to the thing that influenced The Mandalorian in the first place, and the Metsuke says to his servants and to the samurai, lock this kid up. Don't give him water. Don't give him food, because as he starts to cry, he's going to draw in his father. And it's my job as the Metsuke to catch his father. He knows, right? He knows this is the cub, and the father is the lone wolf, from the fighting stance, from the dead eyes, from like everything he's ever heard. And I think this is no ordinary child. I think he is a wolf's child, and as he howls, his father will come to claim him.
Yeah, I really like how he plays into the mythos of the Lone Wolf and Cub, because like I said, anyone kind of in the know would have heard of the Lone Wolf and Cub as this legend, and he just completely plays off of that. That metaphor, like it was, you say, I think he is a wolf's child, and when at last he howls, then his father will come to claim him. Like that's really poetic language. I love this. A lot of this reads like sort of almost Shakespearean. And weirdly, I was watching one of the Lord of the Rings movies last night, and I was looking at all these like classically trained Shakespearean actors doing this dialogue, and I was like, I bet they fucking love this. It's as close as you can get to like old timey English playwright language, and it's in a huge epic movie. But this is kind of, it's the same. It's all very. I love how deliberate it is, and I guess maybe it's just down to translation or the language of the cadence of the time. But everything seems so dramatic and poignant. Everything, and no one says anything frivolous apparently in medieval Japan.
No, definitely not. No, what I really like actually is at the end of that page, the Metsuke begins to wonder who was the assassin come to kill. Now, as we're kind of about to find out, it's complete chance that he's here, right? They're not actually on a mission. The Metsuke believes that he is here to assassinate somebody, but it's more like an episode of the A-Team where they've arrived in the town and then shit just starts happening, by chance. And that's kind of what this is. But the watchman becomes paranoid, and his paranoia grows because he's become so terrified of the boy that he starts to believe not only must his father be here to kill someone, but I'm basically the most important person here. Right? If the kid is in my house, then this must be the ploy of the master assassin to get close to me so that he can kill me. And his fear and paranoia grow and grow and grow. And it's a really cool kind of character development that leads us then into... You were talking about poetry. The next few scenes is like visual poetry, basically. And we find out why Ogami hasn't appeared so far. It's because he's got a fever, right? He's tripping out. Yeah. He's tripping balls,
he's tripping
basically.
Serious balls, and he's got... Yeah, he's poorly, bless him.
Yeah. The baddest motherfucker on the planet is sitting at a roadside shrine, just tripping balls on a fever, and he's viewing himself fighting basically the demons from hell. I think
it's having this weird you said poetry. I can maybe think of Dante's Inferno.
Yeah,
just real kind of graphic, infernal imagery of dead bodies and these demon creatures attacking him, and he's got to fight them off. And he actually, even in the fever dream, he fights them off pretty successfully. But then they just start laughing at him, and it starts to get real disturbing.
He is fighting them off, and I think his blade snaps in the fight, and then they start laughing at him, and it's like he's defenseless against the forces of the damned.
Yeah.
Not the band, the Damned. Although I would like to see Captain Sensible and Rat Scabies fight
Ito Agami
at some point. Yes. So he's sat at the roadside shrine, and he wakes up, and it's like, where is my son? How long have I been here? Where's my son? What's going on? I'd love to go and find out, but he's still too weak from his sickness to get involved. So all of this paranoia that the lord of the house is going through of, who is he? What's he trying to do? Is he trying to kill me? No, it's not true. Yeah. It's just entirely by chance. He's sick in another place. But the lord of the house is determined. We're going to starve his son until we find out what's going on, and we can track him down. Which is when we cut back to our servant girl, and she's wiping the house, doing all the things that she's supposed to do.
All those menial kind of chores you were talking about.
Yeah, but she's still got sympathy for the boy, that she gave the kite to, and she makes him some rice sticks, which is very nice.
They look nice. I'd eat one of those.
Yeah, and she's kind of sneaking him food. She sneaks him some snow through the window so that he can drink it to get water, and it's just enough for him to survive. Like this is kind of her taking pity on him, but also it's more than just being. She does call him like a poor little thing or something, but it's like it's love. It's not pity. She's an empathetic person.
Yeah, she is. Who could be so cruel to a poor little thing like you? And he is super cute. Like let's put that out there. With his stupid Ronaldo circa 2002 World Cup haircut and his big beautiful eyes. He's pretty sweet.
Yeah, the life death eyes are more, when they're together, it's more like a puppy dog eyes.
Yeah, and this is when he starts to call him. But and this is kind of explained, isn't it, in the afterword by Frank Miller that Daigoro starts calling her sis, which is not meant to be literal that she's his sister, but more as something. Often I know that in Japan they will call like a kind old woman, they'll call her auntie or grandmother or something, even though they're not related.
Yes,
it's just and similar thing here, a kinder older girl who's still, he's just being respectful and appreciating her kindness. But then, which seemed obvious to me on first reading, I knew that. But then actually, the adult characters, when they overhear Daigoro calling her sis in that same way, they go, "It's his sister." There's two children of the Lone Wolf, which is a bit strange that they wouldn't pick up on that. But then maybe it's just a product of that paranoia you were talking about, where they're looking for more clues that feed into their delusion.
Yes, I think you're completely right. Yeah, they've made up their mind of the truth of the situation, and any information that comes in, only adds to the belief that they already have. It's like the classic reason why Republicans in America can't believe climate change, because they've decided that climate change isn't happening, and then every evidence that kind of counters what they believe they use as evidence for their own belief. And it's like, and then you end up with 50% of the most powerful country in the world being like, actually the climate's not changing, and then Texas freezes over and everyone's house explodes as the pipes burst in their houses, and then the Republicans in Texas go, this is because we had too much wind power, and if we had more fossil fuels we would have had more electricity. It's like you know what? They're like the Metsuke, right? They're so obsessed with proving themselves right that they will destroy themselves to confirm their own belief. And that's kind of what we see at play here.
This depresses me so much.
How tight is your heart right now? Because I was reading that the other day and my heart was clenching in frustration as I'm like, because every time you see something like that happen in America, right? Like when you see California in flames, you think, this will be the bit where the people who have said it's not happening, where they realise it's so big, Australia is on fire and like 80% of koalas have been wiped out in like a matter of weeks, right? And you think this will be it, where they look at it and they realise, and what happens is they go, oh no, it's actually because people were in the woods starting fires. It was, what did they say? It was, all of this happened because of what do they call it when a trans person they have like a coming out party, but it's not a coming out party. I can't remember what it was. It was like a coming out party, and somebody accidentally set fire to something, and they're like, all of California burned.
Oh yeah, that was a gender reveal party, wasn't it?
Gender reveal party. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly, that's the phrase I'm looking for. Yeah, and then and it's like, obviously, as you will see, it's because of the left wing. It's the LGBT people that are burning California down, not climate change.
Yeah. This is the kind of bullshit that changed my life about 5 years ago, and in the wake of the first Brexit referendum, and the results were coming in, and I had a Dr. Manhattan moment where I was like, that's it, I'm going to Mars. Fuck this. There is nothing for me here. I cannot stand to be around this energy anymore. This is fucking similar thing. It's why but until about a year ago when COVID-19 was really taking over our lives, I hadn't looked at the news for years because it would just give me that same kind of feeling of people, man, what for all of the lovely ones that there are, and there are. We've got you, and we've got our families and our friends, and a handful of others, let's say, and then there are just
Yeah.
billions of other people that just wind me up. And we could just do without them. And, if Thanos was here and snapped his fingers and I was one of those that got snapped away, I'd be like, fine, you know what? Like, I'll take those odds because you're just going to at least get rid of half of the people that are causing all the problems.
Yeah, do you know what? There was something I saw in the wake of the thing in Texas. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas
this guy
did an Yeah, he did it. This was before he fled the area with his children. But
Like
he did an interview. I think the interview was from a while ago, but I only saw it after the stuff in Texas, where he's actually a reasonably into comic books, and his favorite comic book character is Rorschach from Watchmen, because Ted Cruz read Watchmen and completely misunderstood the book.
That's what Alan Moore has said, though, isn't it? Numerous times. It's like people come up to him and go, "Oh, Rorschach is my favorite character," and they explain why, and then Alan Moore has to say to these diehard fans, "That's because you're an idiot, then." Because you do not get the character whatsoever. You watch the movie where he beats the shit out of all those prisoners and burns that guy with chip oil, and you're like, yeah, fucking Rorschach, man. But then you completely missed the point. It's like people who think that Tyler Durden is like the Messiah. It's like you didn't get the point of the film or the book at all.
Yeah.
We're off track. One of the things we're way off track.
No, I know. I just want to finish this last bit and then we'll get back on. In the interview, Ted Cruz was talking about Watchmen and Ozymandias, and then also Thanos. And he was saying how, isn't it interesting how these villains tend to be like environmentalists who kill massive numbers of people in order to save the planet. And it's like liberal people are obsessed with killing people for the greater good in popular media, and it's like it's always says like, oh yeah, Thanos was really evil, but actually it was kind of good for the world when all of those people died. And he's like, and that's because left-wing people hate people, and he's like, we on the Republican Party love people, which is of course why he doesn't want to help the poor and why he likes keeping guns that shoot kids in schools. And
but I mean, Rorschach is undoubtedly a right-wing character, and I think you can make an argument that Night Owl was. Could you argue that Captain America is a pretty right-wing because he won't allow a single person to die in the face of the odds and the...
Oh, no, we'll come back to that. If you want to do an episode on that, I'll do an episode on that. That's great. Okay, that's not what we'll find a father and son relationship with Captain America, and we'll do it.
Well, there's Abraham Erskine, the scientist who transformed him. He was a bit of a father figure, if maybe more just like a mentor or like a grandpa friend. I don't know.
There is an issue of the Ultimate Comics, the Ultimates, I guess, where Captain America's son turns into the Red Skull. So maybe we can do that and come back to it.
How the fuck does that work?
We'll get to it. It's fine. Okay, so back to Lone Wolf and Cub. Our servant girl has come in and helped Diagoro, given him some food, given him the water. Just not much, but enough to survive. And the Metsuke is looking through the windows at our boy and can't understand what's happening. Right? It's been days, and he's not tired. He's not like he doesn't look hungry. He's not crying. What's going on? And he notices the footprints, follows the footprints to find the servant girl, and they just beat the shit out of the servant girl, basically try and get information from her. Right, like you came into the house at the same time that the baby arrived. Clearly, this was some kind of ploy on the part of the baby cut assassin. Right, like the Lone Wolf put you both here, and as they're beating her, the Metsuke says like, "Kill her if you have to, but make her talk."
Yeah, brutal.
And and that's when we get the line, "He was so pitiful. That's why I." And then she
passes out because she's had the shit kicked out of her by grown adults with sticks.
Yeah, and that looks like the stick that they're beating her with. It's got like a metal paddle on the end. Maybe it has a practical use, but it looks like, again from playing Shogun Total War, it looks like the kind of spear that the troops would have. And I wonder if it's like the peasant troops at the beginning of the game who are essentially using farm equipment. And I wonder if this is like kind of like a scythe or like a harvesting tool or something like that. Yeah, maybe it is just a paddle that they're just using to beat her, but it looks like it could be a spear of some kind,
Yeah.
or
I thought that,
that,
it's either that or an ice hockey stick, and they're going to go out and
it does look like
shoot some nets later on.
Yeah, they're gonna paddle her around a bit. Yeah. So they used this to confirm everything. The Metsuke says clearly I'm the target, so we're gonna go out, we're gonna find the lone wolf, and we're gonna kill him. And as they throw the servant girl into their kind of makeshift prison cell with Diagoro,
like a warehouse,
he's saying,
"Sis," them in, isn't it?
Yeah, he's saying, sis, and they're like, aha. He said, sister, just as I suspected. This confirms all of my earlier prejudice, just like Ted Cruz. And Diagoro, then we cut back to that fever dream-esque scenario that we saw his father
Which is
have.
odd, though, because, his father had this fever dream of, like, men with beast heads, like boars and other animals. They're all kind of horrific. But now Daigoro looks up at this gang of adults who are about to set out to kill his dad, and he sees them in this way. Their bodies are the same, their clothes are the same, but they've got these beast heads, like animal heads, and he has a bit of a berserker moment.
He does. He goes full berserker barrage, as we like to say.
He does. Yeah, and what does he pick? He picks up something. He's got something, a little sharp stick that he picks up from nowhere, and
I think it's the stick. I think it's the stick from the rice sticks that she gave.
I would assume so.
Because I had to think about that.
Yeah, we never see him pick anything up. He's just got one, and
I think he's eaten the rice from the rice stick and then sharpened it, because he turns it into a pretty lethal fucking weapon.
Well, he's been in prison. He's made a shank, obviously. And he fucking sticks it into the knife teeth woman, the head servant woman.
The one who was going to stab him with her hairpin.
And then he fucking legs it.
Yeah, he leaps up, stabs her in the chest, and then runs. And the Metsuke is like, don't stop him, right? He's going to lead us to his father, who we're after. Follow him.
Yeah.
Right, just follow the kid, find his dad, kill them both. I really like the demon head moment, though, because I think you're right. The connection isn't there between, like, why is he seeing the same thing that his father saw in the fever dream? But I think it's more connecting to what you were saying earlier on about how the son is following the same path as his father. It's like they're on the road to hell, right? Like, together. We've seen that phrase before, like being on the road to hell. And his father is hallucinating these, the demons from hell. But his son is actually seeing them in people, right? And people, he's realizing, as when you walk the road to hell, then the demons come to you almost. And these people are as bad as demons are ever going to be. Like, they've beaten him, they've beaten the servant girl. They're fucking pig-headed minotaur monsters.
Yeah, or maybe it's something. Maybe it's just this Daigoro kind of contextualizing. Like all the murder and the killing that he's seen, because he's seen his dad kill a lot of people, and we haven't really seen many instances of, especially by issue 2, but even as you go further on, you don't see many instances of Ogami killing innocent good people. Like he often is hired to kill someone who isn't necessarily super clean anyway, or people start on him and he just retaliates and slays them all because he's the baddest man alive. So as a child, you can imagine, well, how can my dad is my hero, my guardian. I look up to him, and we've talked about this before. Up to a certain point in childhood, you assume that everything your parents do is the right thing to do, and they never make a mistake. They're never wrong about anything. So maybe Daigoro is seeing them as monsters because it's easier to contextualize why it's okay to kill them, because they're not men, they're not people, they're beasts. Just like how in cartoons, great cartoons like Samurai Jack and even like the Ninja Turtles, they use pretty deadly weapons, but obviously you can't have these hero characters using their deadly weapons on people, so you make their enemies all robots or aliens, or something that kids can watch be dismembered without being traumatized or turned into little murderers of their own. So it could be a similar thing as that, as going, these are baddies, and therefore I'm going to visualize them as monsters, literal monsters.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah, we get Diagoro runs back through the snow. The Metsuke's plan is he's going to run back to his father and ask his father for help, but instead he's running back saying, sis, like he's not running back to ask his dad. Instead he arrives back at the shrine, and rather than saying to his dad, Dad, help, he runs over and picks up the sword,
dad's sword
himself.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's ready to go back out there, right? And Ogami doesn't flinch. He doesn't move. Ogami's just sat there watching his son. He's like, he doesn't say, where have you been? He doesn't say, what have you been up to? What's going on? Why have you got bruises on your face? Or that he's been gone for days.
Yeah.
Right? And his dad's just like, oh. And he runs, picks up the sword, and as he's ready to, he's starting to get tears in his eyes now, but they're not tears for him. They're tears for the girl who helped him. And he's got the sword, and Daigoro is ready to go back out. And his father says, Daigoro, I don't know what kind of trouble you've gotten into, but are you sure you can finish it alone? And that's it. He doesn't ask his father for help. His father's like I don't know what's outside those doors. Right? It could be anything. But if his son just left, I get the feeling that he'd be kind of like, all right, see you later.
Yeah. Let me know how you get on.
Yeah. But instead, Daigoro turns around to his father and gives him the sword back, and they exit together to find the group of men who were there for the wolf. Right? They're there to track his father, and they found him. And Ogami says, I don't know what's going on here, but it seems like the time for talk has passed.
Badass.
Yeah. And this is when we just get, Ogami does his thing. There's not really that much more to say.
There is, right? Because not only does he do his thing and just slay all of the dudes who try and attack him, he does the coolest thing yet, where he drops to his knees, and a guy goes to bring down his samurai sword over his head and smack Ogami over the head, and he catches the sword between his palms above his head, and they kind of wrestle with each other, and Ogami manages to sort of twist the sword, the man holding the sword, to one side, and then he fucking snaps it. He breaks this guy's sword, then he gets the little bit of the
blade with his hands.
Snaps the samurai sword with his hands, and the little bit of the sword at the end, he grabs and stabs a guy with it. Oh, so fucking bad. And then he sort of sat there on his knees, surrounded by all these like snow-covered dudes that he's just killed. And in what I guess it's like 3 pages of action, and I imagine that took all of about 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Or maybe no. Let's say 10 seconds, because I reckon at least 4 seconds is him with this holding the sword between his palms and then
it kind of moving it to the side,
just like staring the guy in the eye, and the guy's like, I can't even. I've got 2 hands on the hilt of my sword, and this guy is stronger than me with the palms of his hands on the blade of my sword. Oh, gangster.
He's pretty cool. He's pretty cool. Yeah, so one of the guys runs back to the Metsuke and is like, oh my god, it's him, he's killed all of us. So they send out everybody else, and this time they take the girl with them as their prisoner, right? Because they think that the girl is his daughter. So they think, obviously we've got the upper hand here because he might be the baddest motherfucker on the planet. But we have his daughter, not knowing that it's not his daughter. He's never met this girl before. He doesn't know who it is. The only person who cares about this girl is Daigoro. So all of these soldiers run out to go and face our assassin. And then we just cut to the snow. And through the snow, we see Ogami pushing the baby cart, which now has these cool snow sleds underneath. I can't remember if they've been there the whole time, but either way, they're very cool.
I never noticed that before. Maybe that's new.
Yeah. But as they get closer, it's like Ogami is looking badass, but Daigoro is in the front of that baby cart, shouting, sis, and it's like, I'm gonna come to get you, you motherfuckers. And not like Daigoro is like the Again, it's like that father and son moment, right? Is where they're confronted by enemies, surrounded by them. And I love the Metsuke says, are you the ones known as Lone Wolf and Cub? Which means he isn't just addressing Ogami, right? He's not just like, are you the Lone Wolf? It's like the two of you, because they're so terrified of this kid now as well, right? The kid has fucked them up so much.
It's just like, part of the myth of Ito Agami as he is himself.
Yeah. And so, but again, this is where the paranoia plays in from the Metsuke's point of view. He says, "Are you the Lone Wolf and Cub?" And Ogami says, "My name's unimportant. I'm a passing traveler." Right? Just like move out of the way. We've got nothing invested in this. We'll just keep going if you get out of the way, basically. But the Metsuke can't believe it. He's like, "I've uncovered your plot. You're not going to get away from me. Talk, or we're going to kill the girl." The only reason that they get involved is because Diagoro cares. And it's like if they say, "Who are you?" and the either the servant or the mother with the giant, it must be a spear because she's holding it above her head like she's going to decapitate the servant girl. Yeah, and she said, "If you value your daughter's life, drop the sword." And Ogami gives once again, he does the badassest thing in the world. Do you want to read this bit?
I'm not sure if this is in a monologue or if this is spoken, but it's...
it's not in a thought bubble. It is. It's in. I think it's supposed to be spoken. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he says.
So it's like, what is who hired you? Who have you come to murder? Like that.
Yeah. And the servant girl's like, "If you value your daughter's life, drop your sword." And Daigoro's freaking out, "Sis!" So, scowling, Ito Ogami says, "Why does the snow fall? People shiver, not knowing the reason. The snow doesn't care that it chills the hearts of men. It's inevitable." See, that sound, that felt like it was thought to me, but then actually, imagine you're faced with the scariest dude in the world, and you're just like going, "Tell us what your plan is. Oh, we're going to kill this person." And he just comes out with fucking poetry. That's only going to increase your terror. Because he almost exists in another plane, like he's in a different place. Do you know what? It's the Thanos "I am inevitable" moment with the snow, right? And then like, only Thanos is our hero in this one is Ogami. Yeah. There's no Iron Man to turn around and go, "I am Iron Man," and snap his fingers like that. But Ogami does what he's told, and he throws his sword into the snow, and the servant lady's like, "Ha ha. I thought so. She is your child." And without answering, another just fucking cool as shit thing happens.
Yeah, this is when we find out that Ito Ogami is also like Batman or Inspector Gadget or something. Because inside the baby cart, he's got some kind of trigger, and we don't even see the spears shooting out from the baby cart. We see them flying through the air, and a caption box tells us, "Suddenly, hidden spears spring from the Diagoro's baby cart, and they impale that motherfucking servant who was like beating them." Yeah, well, she gets a spear through the chest, and then Ogami runs with 2 blades, which is when it really is terrible. But what I really wanted to bring up from this next fight, actually, that I hadn't thought about until now, but it really ties into what he was just saying about why does the snow fall. Because I saw the double page spread here, which is with a weapon in each hand, Ogami just annihilates every single person. And I was looking at that like, he is a force of nature, right? He's not a man. He is a storm. And I thought I hadn't connected the fact that there is a snowstorm going on to this point. But it's like he's not a person anymore, right? Like that kind of gets raised up more in the next volume as well. He is those demons, right? That journey he is hell. He is the snowstorm. He is inevitable. Like you just pick any other reason to get away from this guy, because he's you can't. Yeah, what do you do if you're confronted by Ito Ogami and you think that he might be there to kill you?
Fucking run,
if
man.
You that's your only
option. Run away
option.
And never return.
Yeah, and Diagoro and the servant girl watch as Ogami just tears his way through everybody. Like, it's not even a contest.
No, it doesn't even look hard. And he's not even using swords. No. He's throwing his sword to the ground. It looks like he's got 2 of those spear things, or 2 halves of a spear, and he's just... he could have almost just span in a circle, like the Tasmanian devil, and just... bits of
Yeah, well, it's
dudes
like
go
a
everywhere.
tornado. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's fighting like a hurricane, or like he is the eye of the storm, and his blades are everything else around him.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
just
there's a really cool. We're not
chaos
going to get to it today, but in 6 or 7, there's a really cool bit where he fights some guys in water, and it's that same
Yeah.
thing where he has a style which
Yeah.
complements water, and he's almost like, give up, Anakin, I have the high ground. Some guys
Yeah,
like, don't go
yeah.
into the water with him. That's
Yeah,
where he's at
yeah.
his strongest, and he just because he's like nature. He just complements it.
Yeah, yeah. That moment is so awesome. I want to jump ahead and talk about it, but I know we're not supposed to talk about it today. But I remember reading that bit like a couple of months ago. It's like 6 guys, and he steps into the river, and everyone follows him into the river, and the sheer panic of the Lord at the back. It's like, don't go in the river. Are you crazy? Yeah. And like to anyone else, it's like it's like a Jurassic Park.
Yeah, don't go
Jurassic
into the
Park
long
2.
grass.
Don't go into the long grass. Yeah.
He's a velociraptor. You don't go into the long grass.
Yes. Yeah. He is a velociraptor or a T-Rex. He's a dinosaur. The whole point of Jurassic Park is that you can't control nature. Right?
Yeah.
That's the Jeff Goldblum speech. You can try and control nature, but ultimately nature will break free. And Ogami is that force of nature. Yeah. So the end of this issue of Volume 2 is they've saved the servant girl, or maybe she's wounded still. We don't know if she's going to survive or not. But Daigoro gets out of the baby cart. They put her in the cart. They wrap her up nice and warm in the snow, and they just push the cart away and leave the corpses behind.
Just to have history wipe them away like snow. Just bury them and leave them there.
Yeah, and so far I haven't read a chapter where the servant girl comes back, and so I don't know if this is it. We're not going to see her again. Maybe she'll come back. Maybe we are jumping around in time a little bit. But she's an interesting character, and I would like to, as much as it is like they travel from town to town, meeting new people every time. Like she is an interesting character that I would like to see come back.
Yeah, well, I don't even know.
Some more.
I think she's got the potential to be interesting. She's not been super interesting, or there's not been a lot of depth to her so far, but she's been nice, and she'd make a good addition to the family. But it's interesting that they don't have like a few panels where they drop her off at somewhere safe and off they go on their adventure.
Yes,
it just ends with them all three of them leaving the scene of carnage. So yeah, you'd think. Maybe it'd be more traditionally Western for them to then have her brought back later, but who knows?
Yeah. I think the next chapter, which is issue 3, but again, if my reading of Chinese is correct, it should be chapter 4.
Okay, with the Gateless Barrier.
The Gateless Barrier, yeah. This one, I don't feel like we have to go through the plot so much, because the plot is kind of... it's a pretty easy plot. What's more interesting is the journey that Ogami goes through within this one. So the plot is there is a high priest that is considered to have reached enlightenment. They refer to him as a Buddha. And Ogami is tasked with killing him. He's hired to kill him. But when he attempts to kill him, Ogami realizes that he is unable to kill the priest. And the priest says that when you go into combat with somebody, the two of you meet with your aura of death, essentially. If you project an aura of death, or maybe an aura of life, with somebody, then you will fight them. And maybe you have the opportunity to kill them because the two of you have reciprocated in your in auras of death. Only one of you is going to make it out of there alive. But because the Buddha has reached enlightenment and is in a state of nirvana, he essentially has shed his fear and aura of death.
Yeah.
Meaning that Ogami can't kill him.
They call it Mu in this, don't they? Because nirvana, I think, is a bit more Hindu, but they call it Mu, which is like I think that Frank Miller talks about it in the intro. It's like I'm just gonna look at it.
Yeah, to me, I didn't read the intro, but I get that idea of the whole point of this is about leaving attachments behind, right? And he has shed his fear of death, but then with that also comes losing your attachments in life. And they repeat that phrase a lot of when you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha.
Yeah.
If you meet your parents, kill your parents. And kind of the point of that is that respecting someone for being the Buddha and respecting someone for being your parents is to give an attachment to them that prevents you from reaching that enlightened phase that allows you to become one with the universe in that way.
So it's not Frank Miller who goes into it. I think he just mentions that it's the sense of nothingness, but it's in the first few pages where Ogami is kind of meditating in this shack in the middle and on top of a mountain, like Wolf Mountain. We find out it's called later on because it's basically swarming with fucking bloodthirsty wolves. It's a terrifying place. But he says, "Is it possible to become one with Mu, nothingness? To forget the self, where subject and object are as one? To become a leaf of Naigadajo, to feel nothing is to have no barriers, no ties to the material world." So yeah, it's kind of like what you were saying. You can't achieve that state of higher existence if you have attachments such as parents and Buddha.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do a great job of showing that with the wolves themselves, because cool. when he's first on the Wolf Mountain, the wolves attack him because they say some of the villagers say that it's late in the winter, all of the food is gone, the wolves are looking for things to eat, the wolves are going to try and eat you. And in the beginning, the wolves are constantly trying to attack him, and he is having to kill them to survive, to meditate. But as he reaches the stage of nothingness throughout the chapter, the wolves no longer attack him because he is no longer projecting that aura of death, right? He has reached in himself that nothingness, and so they don't attack him because he has nothing to reciprocate.
That's so cool, yeah. Because the first pack that attack him, he uses his swords, cuts them all down, and then he says, "I'm not going to use this sword again until I reach this state." And the bodies of the wolves that he's killed get eaten by other wolves, which maybe satiates them a little bit. And the next bunch of wolves that attack him, he fucking punches them to death. Doesn't use his sword. And I love that moment where more time passes and the wolves come and they sort of just come past him, like sort of circle him as he sat in meditation, and then they just leave. And Ogami realizes he's accepts that he's come to that state where, like you were saying, he's not projecting death anymore. And so he gets up to leave and he just walks through this pack of wolves, like a dozen wolves just watch him walk straight through them, and he just sort of serenely passes them by and they give him space, like they respect him. It's cool. I find that so fucking awesome when someone kind of transcends that animalistic confrontational thing with animals, like when a person does that. Like I dream that I could walk into a pack of wolves and be like, "It's cool, lads, it's cool, like, I'm one of you, it's all good." And they'd be like, because I love dogs and I'm good with dogs, I expected that that I can extrapolate that to all animals. Like I could walk into a tiger pen at the zoo and be like, "Hey, don't worry, it's me, it's Dave," and the tiger would be like, "Oh yeah, you're cool." Like there's a small part of me that believes that would happen, but I'm never going to risk it because I'm also terrified of everything.
Well, that's a fair point. Yeah, I think that this chapter is really interesting because it's one I don't really want to talk about too much, because I feel like in talking about it, with this one, I just kind of want to get people to read it rather than just explain what happens.
Yeah.
If you like, it feels it's a more spiritual one, and in trying to explain it, it feels like I'll be losing some of the message.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's an awful lot of subjective kind of interpretation that could be done here, and it's really quite a beautiful story and a beautiful exchange, and I love it. Does jump around in time a bit, and I think you're right, it's an important one to read, and an interesting exploration of spirituality and the sort of Eastern religion.
And I think Ogami's journey in comparison to what he's hired to do is really interesting, because he's hired essentially the Buddha here, the high priest, is telling the lords that they have to reduce their taxes on the peasants because the peasants are paying too many taxes and they're stuck in poverty. But as the Lords say, the state is already in debt, right? We're in such debt, we need the peasants to pay their taxes because we have to pay off the state's debts from last year. And this is so it says that the peasants need to pay us because we're the government and we protect them. And the priest is like, fools! In a very unenlightened way. He gets angry and shouts at them and is like, what is the government without the people? I think is what he says. And so the state hire Ogami to kill the priest because they need the priest to be gone so that the peasants don't have any support. Right? The priest is voicing his support for the peasants, and you can ignore the priest, but he's essentially a living Buddha, as they say, and that's difficult to ignore.
Yeah, and the peasants are going to be way more reverential of him than they are of the government who are trying to take their money.
Yeah. So the peasants are kind of following the priest.
Financially, they're going to be on his side.
Yeah. And so they hire Ogami to kill him, and Ogami is like, if he's a living Buddha, the rules of our society and of spirituality and of heaven and hell mean that you cannot kill a living Buddha, right? If you tried to kill him, you would physically be unable to do so. And the guy from the government explains to Ogami, that may be true, but if you kill a man who is posing as a living Buddha and he dies, then of course he could not have been a Buddha in the first place, which means if you succeed in killing the Buddha, then he was no Buddha at all, because a living Buddha cannot be killed. So if you do murder him, it means he was a fraud, and the peasants will lose their faith in his messages and go back to their own way.
Yeah,
so it's like projecting this.
If the witch floats or survives being drowned, then she is a witch, but if she doesn't, then she wasn't a witch, but she's dead. But
either way, exactly. So then we get the moment where Ogami first confronts the priest, and he can't kill him. Right? He tries to kill him, and then we have this death aura moment that we were speaking about before, where he tries to kill him, and because the priest doesn't reciprocate his aura of death, he's unable to kill him, and Ogami's literally frozen. He said, "That which is not cannot be slain. You cannot kill me, for I am a leaf of Nagajo," which he said earlier on. "Forget the self and unite with Mu, with nothingness." So because he is nothing, he cannot be killed, which means that he is a Buddha, right?
He professes to be.
It means he doesn't say that. Ogami tries to kill him and physically cannot. Because he's frozen by the fact that he doesn't receive that aura of fear back. So he can't kill him. And so Ogami instantly sits down, ready to commit seppuku. Right? He sits down to kill himself, and he's like, "I'm an assassin, and I can't kill you. And as an assassin who can't kill, I have failed in my mission, so I will kill myself honorably in front of the Buddha."
That's probably one of the better places to do it.
Yeah, but then, rather than accepting that, the Buddha tells him, "You must reach your own form of enlightenment and reach nothingness so that you can kill me." And the Buddha essentially teaches him what will be necessary for him to complete his mission, which is to go to the mountain, to find Mu, to enter the Gateless barrier, as we say. If you can achieve Mamonkan, the Gateless barrier, then you will be able to walk the Assassin's Road, therefore you will be able to kill me. So in order to kill an enlightened person, you yourself must reach enlightenment. And so he does it. Ogami goes off, he climbs the wolf mountain, he reaches the state of nothingness whereby the wolves refuse to attack him, and then he comes back and kills the Buddha. And he doesn't kill the Buddha because he wants to at this point. He does it because he has reached a form of enlightenment in which he can, and he must complete his mission. And when he leaps into the air and strikes the Buddha in the head, cutting him down the middle, essentially.
Splits him in half.
Yeah, the Buddha replies, "Perfect, a gateless barrier, beautiful." And then, in our classic manga anime fashion we've spoken about so many times, just rips in half. Well, in this case, down the middle for Two-Face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And all the peasants watching on, because they're watching this procession as the high priest is being sort of escorted in a fucking throne like a king. And all the peasants are in absolute shock that the high priest has fallen, and they say, kill him, that guy killed the high priest. And someone leans out and is like, wait, but the priest said that was beautiful. Like, what should we be thinking about this? And the priests all chase after Agami as he's just sort of casually walking out of town. All the peasants have got their forks and trowels and shit. They're gonna take their revenge on Agami, but they can't. They don't attack him. And I'm just realizing this now, because Ogami is not projecting that aura of death. Therefore he can't be attacked.
Yeah, he's reached that stage of enlightenment whereby he has no fear, and his aura isn't there, so the peasants don't attack him. But what's interesting then is that the lords who hired him to kill the priest in the first place go, right, to regain the peasants' trust now. We the samurai class lost the peasants' trust by overtaxing them, but now we can regain their trust by killing the man who killed the Buddha, basically. So, they hired him to kill the Buddha. Now he's done it. They're going to kill him so that the peasants will trust in them again. So they rush down there to punish him.
But as if they don't know who he is at this point.
Oh, no, they know. Yeah, you're right.
Go, okay, there's maybe there's 8 of us. We'll be fine. We'll just attack the most feared man in the whole of Japan, and then we'll be all will be rosy, lads. It'll be great.
Yeah. And what's interesting this time is that they do attack him, even though he wasn't projecting that fear of death before, so the peasants didn't attack. But this time is different. And he says, if I project the aura of death, they will attack. And in a thought bubble, he says that. And then they attack. Which leads me to be thinking that his state of enlightenment that he reached was only temporary. That he had done the right thing by killing the Buddha in this case. And that task continued enough that the peasants wouldn't attack him. But this time, it's lost. And he's lost that, and they're going to attack him. And he turns to Daigoro and says, Daigoro, hold on tight. And then they leap into battle together. So he still has his attachment to his son, because the first thing he does is put his son on his back to protect him and keep him safe. And to me, that means he's lost that enlightenment that he had. He gained the enlightenment he needed to kill the Buddha, but now he...
I think he gave it up, I think. He used it to his advantage, almost. Maybe I don't know how you can achieve that sense of enlightenment if you're only doing it to attain a goal, and which you will then just forego as soon as you don't need it anymore. But yeah, I feel like in picking up Daigoro and going, hop on, you're right, he's showing an attachment to something, and therefore he can't be in the state of Mu anymore. But yeah, I feel like it was a choice. Because how many other high priests or potential living Buddhas is he going to need to kill? And I guess he could always just do it again, go back to the Wolf Mountain and be like chop up some wolves until they don't attack him anymore.
Yeah,
repeat the cycle.
Back to the mountain.
It's like you just got to do the grinding, before you got to level up a bit before you can face the Elite Four. Yeah.
Do you know what? It's like he's playing Mario and he took the invincibility star for a bit, and he's running around and killing people as he kills. Yeah, then he kills the priest and the peasants, but then as he comes up to the samurai, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, right now I've got to start playing the game properly again.
It's back to normal Mario,
Yeah.
Meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha.
I think that's... we've been talking for an hour and a half about Lone Wolf and Cub. And if we want to really go into depth in Flute of the Fallen Tiger, which I do because it's some badass shit, I don't want us to have... Yeah, I don't want us to have to rush through it, and I don't want people to be, 3 hours into this episode before we get to it. So what do you say we push Flute of the Fallen Tiger on to our next Lone Wolf and Cub so we can really kind of dig deep into it?
Yeah. Actually, I've got a suggestion.
Yeah.
Our next recording will be our final episode of Needom Genesis de Evangelion.
Oh, it will.
So, it will. So I propose that we make Lone Wolf and Cub our replacement serial.
Okay.
So we'll do the same thing. We'll release Lone Wolf and Cub every couple of weeks, and we'll break it up with something else in between.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah.
Then we
That
won't be waiting
great.
for years in order just to finish reading Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great idea. So, yes, next time we will come back in a couple of weeks with The Flute of the Fallen Tiger and then Volume 5, which, if I can just check the name of that one quickly. Half Mat, Whole Mat, and a Fistful of Rice.
Oh, that was a good one. Yeah.
This is the one we were talking about, actually. Volume 5 is the one we were talking about with the man who is trying to convince Ogami to abandon the Assassin's Road in order to protect his son. That is a fucking great issue. So we will come back to that in a couple of weeks, because that's a great one. So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Daddy Issues. We will see you with some more Lone Wolf and Cub soon.
Lone Wolf and motherfucking Cub!